Hi everyone, welcome to this month's Chats with Chicas. If this is your first time joining us, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us before we get started. My name is Zoe Camotes. I'm the president and founder of Chica Chat. We are dedicated to empowering women through networking and professional development. We are here to serve the business women of El Paso. If you're already part of our community, thank you so much for joining us again. We're glad to see you back. Today, we'll be discussing building resumes and networking tips with Tori Urquidi. If you have any questions for us, go ahead and submit them up top in the Q&A box. And if you would like to add anything to the discussion, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll try to get to all of that after Tori's presentation. But that's all from me. Let's go ahead and get started with Tori.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tori Urquidi and I will go ahead and start by sharing my screen. I see Raylan. Hey Raylan. Yeah, so if you do have any questions, you can feel free to chime in at the chat anytime. So let me go ahead, pull up the presentation. Oh. Whoa, well, you just got a whole preview of my presentation. Okay, so this is a Chica Chat. Like Zoe mentioned, this is a nonprofit organization from my hometown. So I'm really happy to be here and I'm really happy to talk through this presentation. So a little bit about the agenda that we're gonna run through today. The first part is gonna be an introduction of myself, some resume building, some advice in networking, continuing education, resources, and then I'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes, hopefully, depending on how quick I go through this presentation, on questions. So the first slide is about me. I'm Victoria Tori Urquidi. I am from El Paso, Texas, born and raised. And after I graduated high school, I moved to San Antonio. I studied public health at the University of Texas in San Antonio, and I graduated with my bachelor's. And then I moved to Austin, and it was in Austin that I met a woman by the name of Kathy that I'll talk a little bit about later in the presentation. And then I moved from Austin to Dallas, and then I'm currently in Phoenix. So my background has been predominantly in HR and benefits consulting. So I started off in the broker world, and then I was a data analyst, and I got my certification in data analytics. And there is where I was able to work in a platform called Tableau, and I learned SQL, and I was able to really dig into the benefit offering for the employer I was working for, and I was able to help strategize with executives on how to attract and retain new employees. So I do have a background working with HR people, so a lot of what I've learned throughout the years is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So we'll hop right into the beginning of the presentation. This first part is going to be resume building. And this first part is the applicant tracking system, or the ATS resume. So the applicant tracking system is a software that streamlines the hiring process. And these are going to be more of your traditional resumes that you see. So what this software is it makes the HR, hiring manager, it makes their job a lot easier. And what it does is it scans through resumes. So using optical character recognition, it's going to actually be reading keyword searches and keywords in your actual resume itself. And unfortunately, it will reject resumes that don't meet those string of characters or those keywords that the actual position is, the search words that those positions are for. So that's an ATS, applicant tracking system resume. Again, those are more traditional resumes. Second resume, this is more of a creative resume. So this is where, if you're in a creative field or creative industry, or doing something different with your resume where you're building more of a portfolio, this is going to be a lot more personality driven, where you can use a lot more color and different fonts and different text. So that's a creative resume. And again, I'll walk through all of these and when to use them. Curriculum, yes, CV. So CV is going to be more of an overview of one's life's work. So CV tends to be 2 to 3 pages of, your collection of experience. So this has to do with your academic background. If you have a master's degree or you're pursuing your PhD, a lot of times you're going to have a dissertation that is attached to your higher education or publications that maybe you worked on with the team. So again, a CV is going to capture a lot more information, or say you have 10, plus years of experience, you're going to want to use a CV. So when you should or shouldn't use a creative, an ATS resume or a CV. So the ATS or more traditional resume, this is going to be for larger companies. This tends to be Fortune 500 companies where they're getting 200 applicants for a position and they're trying to sift through all of the resumes that they're receiving. So if you have to create a job profile, or say you have to create an account to apply for this position, 9 out of 10 times that resume that's going to be used, or the actual technology that's going to be used, is the ATS reader. If the platform's in Workday, that's probably going to be an ATS platform, ICMIS, or once the resume is loaded and it automatically starts to populate the fields, that's also going to be an example of an ATS resume. So for a creative resume, if it's a smaller company, maybe 50 or less employees, or say someone who knows another person and they're asking you to share your resume with them, that's going to be a time where you can use a creative resume, and that your resume is being internally shared. So that's an opportunity for you to add a little bit more of your personality into your resume. Or say you're building a portfolio for a creative job, that's another time that you would use a creative resume. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, the CV, this is going to be for 10 plus years of work experience, including multiple degrees and certifications or publications and dissertations. So a couple of helpful tips for making your resume. I think, I've been very lucky, and I've offered a lot of my time and experience to helping people build their resume. And I think a constant theme that I see is people not knowing how to take what they're doing or what they do and properly put that into paper, into a statement. So I've done a lot of research on this, and something that is recommended is the XYZ formula. And this is actually Google scholars and Google itself, Google interns and Google employees, they use this formula. And basically you're taking accomplished, which is X, as measured by Y, by doing Z. So when speaking about a project or experience, you're going to start with an action verb. You're going to quantify that effect and then describe how you achieved it. So was it actually a success? So this is actually an example from my resume. And this is something that I did, like I mentioned earlier. I worked for a company called Essilor of America. And my goal was to attract and retain employees, to see how can we keep employees here by looking at our benefits, right? So how I pieced that together was tracked benefit elections of 7,000 plus employees. So again, that's that X, that's the actual quantifiable number. Using an HRS platform, Workday, to implement the new wellness vendor programs for the retention of new employees. So again, I'm giving an overview of what it was that I was actually doing. And then how I achieved that was that I created a data visualization board, which was a full turnover report for the company that was created in Tableau. So again, I'm talking a little bit briefly about the platform that I know. And who did I present that to? What did I do with that information? I actually presented it to executives, and they used that for retention. So again, you're taking what it was that you did, and you're using this formula so that way you can properly come up with a cohesive statement on the things that you actually accomplished. So I'll run through all of these bullet points because I think they're extremely helpful. So I will be reading off the screen. But the second one is going to be, or the third bullet, I'm sorry, is the average time that recruiters spend on your resume is only 6 to 10 seconds. So once your resume, if it does go through an ATS resume tracking system, and then you're flagged because say you did use the proper verbiage, or you're using words that were in the description of the actual job description itself, after that, a recruiter is only looking at your application or your actual resume for 6 to 10 seconds. So again, being very cohesive and using numbers and using quantifiable data of the things that you actually did is what's going to make you stand out. If you are using an ATS resume, always use black text and avoid cursive font. And again, these examples that I'm giving has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your experience, whether or not you qualify for the position. It's actually how the platform reads the text. So it's not going to read cursive font. That's just the computer. You got to be smarter than the computer, and you got to tell the computer what it's actually looking for. So always include contact information. I think that one is pretty big. If you do have a LinkedIn profile, add your LinkedIn profile, skills, and again, relevant experience to the position. I would recommend having multiple versions of your resume for different positions and different platforms. So a creative resume, and or say you're applying for multiple jobs, you're gonna want to tailor those resumes that you are uploading per job based off of the actual job description itself. So if I have experience in one field, but I'm applying for a job in another, again, that system isn't going to pick up on those keywords or those key phrases if I'm not using what's actually in the description. So it's really important that you go back and you edit your resume based off of the job that you're actually applying for. And I know it's tedious. I know it's a lot of extra work to have to make multiple resumes, but again, if you're trying to beat the platform and the ATS resume is needed, then you're going to have to do that so that way those keywords are picked up. So always research resume examples. Like I mentioned, I've worked on resumes for a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, and sometimes I don't really know how to piece together what it is that they've done in the past. And so what I do is I'll research, similar jobs in their field or similar, examples on objectives and what it is that they're doing. And what I do is I open up a Word document and I just piece everything together so it sounds more cohesive, and then I read it out loud. I know that's something so simple to do, but when you read things out loud, you can actually determine whether or not it is a cohesive statement. So again, use Word documents or notes to brainstorm, and then always export your document or your resume whenever you are applying for a job in PDF. So back to the XYZ formula, there is action verbs that are recommended for use. And this is just being intentional with your words. So we're all helpful, we're all outgoing, we're all positive, right? But there are different words that we can use that are going to grasp an audience attention, right? So if you've worked on projects, you can say you implemented, something, or you're a happy-go-lucky person, you're passionate, right? You're creative, you're empowered, you facilitate all of these things. So it's important to be intentional with your words because we're all hardworking, or we all want to be, right? We're all here for one goal, is to make money and have a good life and give ourselves that good life that we always dreamed of or envisioned, right? And so being intentional with those words is really going to help propel you forward whenever you're given those 6 to 10 seconds by a recruiter. And again, I have worked with HR partners in the past, and it's nothing against the actual person that's applying. It's just these people are working on payroll, they're working on benefits, they're working on so many different things. And recruiters themselves, their job is to bring on talent, right? So they're going to be looking for those talented people, and being intentional with your words is really what's going to make you stand out. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we'll hop into the next slide. I can't see if there's any questions yet, but to all of you that are here, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate the support. Okay, so we finished our section on resumes, and I didn't give any examples of actual resumes, but if you ever need me to look at your resume or if you need help building your resume, I'm more than happy to do that for you as well. So I have provided my contact information at the end of the presentation. Okay, so moving on to networking. So 85% of positions are actually filled by networking or recommendations or people that you already know. And I'd like to give an example of how I actually started my career. So once I graduated college and I moved to Austin, Texas, I was serving tables at a restaurant called Corner at the JW Marriott. And I was not interested in working a corporate job. I was not interested in working a 9 to 5. I had just finished school. I was in school for 4 years and I just wanted to, hang out for a whole year and just have a good time. And I met this woman by the name of Kathy. And Kathy was actually in Austin celebrating that she had traveled to 100 countries with her kids. And I was just immediately awestruck by this person. I'm like, how are you celebrating this? I've never even traveled, that way. I don't understand. And so we got to talking and she told me that you can do all of those things and you can still work a job and you can still have, this freedom. You just have to create it yourself. And so I was very, very intrigued by her. Ended up cashing out my tables. I sat in her section and she asked to see my resume. So I sent her my resume and the next day she forwarded my email, an email with my resume to a lot of different people. And I had job offers all over, the US, like in Cleveland, Miami. And I ended up getting this person by the name of Lee Lewis, who is my mentor. And he offered me the job and was super adamant about me going to Dallas. He needed innovative and young professionals. And I was shocked, how my life changed from one week to the next based off of just this connection with this person. And I think it was then that I really had an idea of just how powerful networking actually is. And I used to hate the phrase, it's about who you know, not what you know, because I didn't want to accept that reality, but it was true and it happened very, very quickly. So fast forward, a couple years, and then I'm here. I'm in my current position with CVS Health, and I was able to do that all because of my network and the people that I met and just kind of being fearless in those ways. So you are your biggest advocate. And I think it's important to believe in the power of networking. I know with COVID, the landscape has changed for everyone. Even in my own professional development at my current job, I don't get to see anybody face to face. So it makes it really, really hard. And I'm having to go and take these measures that I've never really had to do before to meet new people. So with that being said, I know the landscape is a little bit different right now because of COVID, but still believe in the power of networking. And you really never know when you're going to have an opportunity present itself. So back to resumes, always update your resume, always have an updated version of your resume, because again, my personal experience was that someone said, can you send me your resume? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. I had a resume. Luckily I did. If you want to connect with a person, find a way to help that person. I think, we always have room to evolve and grow and to learn new things, and reaching out your hand to help someone is really going to help you create a connection with someone. And thinking people, not positions. I don't care what your position is. I don't care what your title is. Those things don't mean anything. It's about being human. It's about creating those, connections with people and actually thinking about the person, because your title can change, and that title is not definitive of you. So I think always thinking about people and not really positions really helps. Also finding a mentor. I did mention my mentor, Lee Lewis, and then I wanted another mentor. And I went up to a gentleman by the name of Frank Roby. He's a 70-year-old man and he was working in the broker field. And I was like, this guy's awesome. This guy's brilliant. He was great. And the way he talked to people, I really admired everything that he had to speak on. So I went up to him one day and I said, can you be my mentor? And he laughed. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, I need a mentor. I don't know. Can you be my mentor? He's like, okay, no one's ever approached it this way, but I like your approach. and so with that connection, like he was able to help me and give me advice on like what career moves to make. And I really took that information and I actually did apply it, and it's helped me, figure out what it is that I'm passionate about. Another networking tip is creating or updating your LinkedIn. I'm not sure if you all have LinkedIn or you believe in LinkedIn or you use that as a networking tool, but it is a professional networking tool and it's super easy to use. And you add people, you have job offers that are posted, you can do LinkedIn Learning if you pay for, additional service and you're investing in yourself in those ways. And so I think LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool where you can go to someone's profile, see their experience, and then add them and add people that are like, in your same field. Now that I have a little bit more experience in what I do as far as benefits go, I have more connections, I've been able to reach out to people I never thought I would ever be connected with. I'm friends on LinkedIn, or I'm connected to the global director of benefits, which is my goal. I would like to work in benefits eventually, of Nike, right? So his name is David Goggins, and I'm working with him. David Gibbs, I'm sorry. I'm working with him. And I've reached out to him. He's told me to apply for a position before. I didn't get the position. I was rejected, but it's okay. It's just those connections that you have and that you make, and it's just building that confidence. So I would definitely recommend creating and updating your LinkedIn profile. I did provide a little example of the perfect networking email. You can tailor this however you please, but just inviting someone out to grab a coffee. I think there's always room to learn and to meet someone in your field or to meet someone who is doing something that you admire. And so I think, just sending out an email where you're asking, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? This is the perfect networking email. I grabbed it from Refinery 29. And I just wanted to share that with you. All right, we're going to hop into continuing education. I'm going to take another sip of water. Okay, so for continuing education, you are your biggest asset. I think in any field, no matter what you're doing, you're always going to want or need that continuing education. And for me personally, I took a pivot in my career and I learned something different. But then I also realized people were having trouble in Excel. People in my departments, people in my field, like they didn't know Excel. So I learned that skill, and now people come to me, for questions in Excel. And I think that goes for everything, right? Just take marketing, for example. Marketing or social media marketers, their landscape and the trajectory of those careers have changed drastically, right? Take Instagram, for example. The platform of Instagram changes constantly. So you're always having to learn. It's always continuous education. And any field that you're doing, whether you're an art major, whether you're a psychologist, any of those fields, you're going to be constantly learning about these things. So taking something that you want to learn or you want to grow in, and always just being open to educating yourself and becoming a subject matter expert, what we call a SME. So acquiring new skills to stay sharp, creative, and innovative. Okay, so this is a couple of resources. These are my personal favorite resources. And again, the chat is open if you'd like to also share some resources. This platform's open for everyone, so we can have that open dialogue. The first one for me is LinkedIn Learning. I know I've talked about LinkedIn a lot, but I like LinkedIn, and I've learned Excel in LinkedIn. I know there's other courses like Coursera, General Assembly, all of those things, but LinkedIn Learning not only posts jobs and you can not only connect with people, but you can also learn new skills. And then there's Canva. So Canva is actually what I made this presentation in. And I honestly just picked a template and then I plugged and play, and it makes it super easy. I've built resumes in Canva, presentations, you can do Instagram posts. I have a friend who manages social media and she uses Canva as well. Last one is going to be jobscan.com. So I know I mentioned earlier the difference between different types of resumes. So you have your ATS resume. And if you're unsure if your resume is actually compatible with ATS software and capabilities, you can actually upload your resume to jobscan.com, and it'll scan your entire resume and let you know what your resume will actually pick up and what it won't, making it easier for you to make changes. Okay, and that actually concludes my presentation. I wanted to leave some room for questions, so I will turn it over to you, Zoe. I'm not sure if you have questions that are coming through on the chat.
We haven't gotten any questions yet. So if you have a question, please go ahead and submit it. But I have a question so we can get it started. Are there any major like don'ts that you can think of that turn off like hiring managers as far as like LinkedIn profiles or your resume or like networking in general?
So don'ts. I guess it's just dependent on your industry, I would say. Like I don't know the do's and the don'ts. It's just most of what I've learned. I think it's on a case by case, you know, if you're a photographer or if you're a creative director, your background and your LinkedIn are going to look a lot different. I think the biggest thing is just somewhat maintaining professionalism, you know, and being courteous to people and not overstepping people's boundaries, right? Or if you're reaching out to someone and you're not getting any feedback from them, you don't have to continuously persist. I think that's something you have to think, even though you're taking the opportunity to reach out to someone, it's all about how they receive that information. So I don't know if people will receive the information the way that it's coming off. So I think I can't really pinpoint any don'ts, but I don't know. Sorry, Zoe. I hope that answered your question.
No, that's good. Okay, we have a few questions rolling in now. Okay. What's the best timing of when you should submit your resume to a prospective employer? Before you've left your previous job or after?
Before you've left your, so if you're working your job and you're applying for a position, so this is tricky because in states like Texas, you have a fire at will. So you technically don't have to give 2 weeks for your job, but it's just courteous, right? So I would say at least 2 weeks, or something that I've always done is have just like open discussion. When I was moving to Arizona, I had an open discussion with my manager. His name was Ryan. And I kind of just told Ryan like, hey, I'm wanting to move to Arizona. I know that this job doesn't transfer and I can't be remote. But this is my goal, you know, and I just maintain that transparency. I think the biggest thing is when you're transparent with your managers that you currently have, or you're looking for a job. I think you sometimes get scared, right? I have a friend who gave me a great example. She was moving to another job and she was just terrified. She didn't want to tell the hiring manager. She thought she was going to get fired on the spot, or she wasn't going to get her bonus. And it turned out to be the exact opposite. So giving your employer enough time for your transition, I think, is pretty beneficial, because you want to have that open discussion, and maybe the transition looks a little bit different. So maybe you're training someone for a month, you know, versus only giving the 2 weeks and then you're out of there, right? So I think maybe that. And then as far as when you're actually submitting your resume, I would say Monday through Wednesday. That's when HR hiring managers are actually looking at a lot of different applications. Thursday, Friday, the week's kind of cut out, and people aren't looking at them as frequently. It doesn't mean that they're not looking at them, but they tend to pull resumes at the beginning of the week when they're more productive, they're more fresh, and they have, you know, a fresh pair of eyes to look at those resumes. I hope I answered
your. No, that was great.
Okay.
How important is a cover letter?
Oh, this is a great question. This is a really great question. So again, I don't want to say that it's solely dependent on your experience, but depending on the position, a lot of times there will be a section. If there's a section for a cover letter in your application, you 100% want to include a cover letter. Some applications are only asking for a resume, or if you're on LinkedIn, they're only asking, you know, for just your resume, and it's like a super easy LinkedIn easy apply, right? But when it comes to a cover letter, I would say that that's when you include the cover letter. And again, your resume is short, keep it to 1 page, but with a cover letter, that's where you can really grab someone's attention. That's where you can say, I'm this person, I have these things, and this is what I can bring to this position, hire me, right? So you're like flagging them before they even see your resume. So I would say a cover letter is very, very important. And there are so many examples. If you just, you know, do a quick Google search on cover letter examples, and there's so many examples that you will find. And again, you can just tailor it to the position, and you want to give examples on what you bring specifically to that position that you're applying for.
Okay, the next question is networking in the time of COVID. Any tips?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's hard. It really is hard. I think the biggest thing is just reaching out to anyone, you know, and just kind of being fearless in those ways. I know it's very, very scary. It's very, very daunting. But, you know, like Michael Scott said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So the worst thing that someone can say is no. You know, I've tried to reach out to people and they have rejected me, and it hurts because you're like, what the heck did I do? I just wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and your background. But don't take offense to it. Some people are just busy. Some people are too introverted for that type of communication, but just reach out. You know, I think social media is a great platform. You know, with Instagram, it makes it really easy to connect with people. Yes, a lot of your life is out there and you're exposing yourself to the world in those ways, but it is also a portal, right? See it as a portal of a new way of communication, a new way to connect with people. And so, yeah, I think in COVID, just use that technology. I am so thankful for technology because, you know, it's this presentation here that I'm giving and I'm reaching so many people. You can still reach people. It just requires a little bit more effort.
Perfect. The next question is, do you recommend a follow-up email? Do you like, hello, did you get my resume?
Yeah, so I think with resumes, it makes it tricky. Definitely a follow-up email if you're, you know, you went through your first interview, you're following up to see whether or not you got the position. It's been a week, you haven't heard anything. I think definitely if you have a contact, follow-up emails, 100%. When it comes to following up for resumes and actually applying for a position, it's really difficult. Unless you know who the hiring manager is or who posted the job, then at that point, I think you can 100% reach out to them. But again, making those connections. I think the biggest thing is if you know someone who is working at a company or somewhere that you'd like to work, always have them internally refer you, because that moves you up, because it's like it's a referral system. So it goes on point basis. So sometimes people like myself, if you go to CVS, if anyone wants to work at CVS and you're referred by me, I get points. And so that point system will bump up whoever's resume is internally referred on that basis. So it's actually really cool. So if you know anyone who is, you know, working at a position or working for a company that you're interested in, I would definitely say do that internal referring.
Okay, next we have, how would you order or prioritize your past jobs experiences on your resume?
This is a great question. So I would always say in chronological order based off of the relevant experience, right? I worked at Target for 2 years and I was doing guest services when I was 18, 19. That is not relevant experience, right? That might show on my LinkedIn profile because I can capture a lot more jobs that I've worked in the past there. But when it comes to actually showing the jobs that you're working, I would say, chronological order, and based off of the relevant experience for yourself. Or like, say you've been in the service industry for a really long time and you want to encompass that you've been a server or a trainer at a restaurant. You know, you can put server trainer at the top and then put all of the different positions that you've held at different restaurants underneath that.
Okay, next we have, do you recommend putting your social media on private when applying to companies? Do they actually look at that?
That is a great question. Good job. Okay, so yes, they do actually look at that. My recommendation is to make yourself, I guess it just depends, like what you're posting, maybe. Do you want people to see that? They will look at your profile. I think just to be safe, yeah, maybe keep it on private. I have a personal, you know, my personal Instagram is like, they can't find me. I know I'm giving professional advice, but like, you can't find me with my first and my last name. And that's just to create a work-life balance for myself, because we know, and employers know, you have a personal life outside of, you know, work. You know, you're working, yes, but obviously you have a personal life outside of that. So I think they are checking, but they're not checking as much as you would think that they are. Again, if I was a hiring employer, I'm working as a recruiter, I'm going to go check to see if you have a LinkedIn first, above all.
Okay, next.
Great
somebody's
question.
asking what your position is. They realize you already mentioned it, but if you could go over it.
Yeah, no worries. Of course, yeah. So I'm currently an account manager with CVS Caremark. So what I handle is the prescription benefit manager. That's what the PBM is. And so anytime that a member goes to fill their prescriptions at the pharmacy, the coding that is happening on the back end is what I'm responsible for. So I make sure that people can actually get their medications. And then on top of that, I'm taking back that data. I know it's hard because you think pharmaceutical companies, I'm not on the pharmaceutical side, I'm the good guy, but I'm trying to save my client money. So we try to decide how the rebates work and how we can actually save our clients money on prescription benefits. It's really hard with the rise of healthcare, and I'm in the middle of it. I've literally been in the middle of it with COVID. My life has been pretty chaotic, but yeah, that's a little bit about what I do.
Cool. So someone asked that they've seen or heard about putting QR codes on your resume to their LinkedIn. I mean, is that a good idea?
So I haven't actually heard of QR codes on LinkedIn, but I will say that in the beginning, QR codes were kind of confusing. No one really knew how to use them. You had to download a separate app. But I think with COVID, again, a positive is the use of technology and being able to shift and adapt with technology. And I think QR codes are now super easy, right? They're user-friendly. You just pull out your phone, take a picture, and then the menu at a restaurant will pop up. So I do think that it's a good idea. I don't want to say yes or no because I don't know enough about the QR codes, but I would say with the adapting of the QR codes and them being utilized a little bit more, I would say that that's a great idea.
I think that's all of our questions. Does anyone have any more questions before we wrap it up?
Awesome.
And if you want the presentation, I can definitely forward that to everyone if you just want to go ahead and put your email in the chat.
Yeah, and I also, here I have my email, my LinkedIn profile, and my phone number. You guys can reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to look at your resume. I'm happy to, take some time if you want to just do a one-on-one quick phone call. You can call me at any time. Again, these are things that I've learned in my career. I think it's just based off of my experience, and my experience isn't wrong, right? It's just everyone has a different experience, and this has been mine. And these are a little bit of the things that I've learned, and I hope they help you. So thank you all so much for joining.
Wait, we have one more question. Can we take one more
question? Yeah, of course.
What are your thoughts on adding a headshot to a resume?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. So again, back to the conversation about ATS resumes, those more traditional resumes versus a creative resume. So if you're using a creative resume, or if the position requires a more creative resume to be used, I would say 100% put a headshot on there. But if you're using an ATS resume and it's not compatible with that more traditional platform, it's not actually going to read the image. So it's not going to read it as a text. So it'll actually wipe that image out. So yes for creative resumes, no for ATS resumes.
Perfect. I have a few announcements before we completely wrap up and log off. Chica Chat is hosting a Jefa Market in honor of Women's History Month. So if you want to shop locally owned businesses in a virtual marketplace, just go to chicachat.org and you'll find the link to shop it on the homepage. Our next upcoming event is Working the Net. This was our monthly in-person event before COVID, but we've been doing it virtually for the past year, which has been a little bit of an adjustment, but we're excited for this one. It's with Iris Lopez. She is the founder of Mija Yes You Can, and they're all about empowering girls of all ages, and they're all